So we've started to get a handle on what these techniques are, but when it comes to writing about the effective techniques, there are certain patterns we can use to make things easier. Writers use different techniques for different reasons, and if we know what those reasons are, we can understand better what the effect's going to be. Let's start with metaphor. A metaphor is normally used to create a more vivid impression of a particular thing, event, or idea. So it's about creating a strong image to draw you into whatever that moment is with that thing, with that person, that idea. The best way to write about the effect of a metaphor is to discuss the image that the metaphor is creating. So look at what the metaphor is of, what's it referring to specifically. For example, if you had the metaphor, a gunshot shattered the silence, well, we look at the metaphor of a sound being shattered. Immediately, you kind of hear this loud cracking sound or the sound of breaking glass. You get the impression that this gunshot is loud and powerful. So that shattering of the silence creates a really strong auditory, that means hearing, picture of what's happening, what the gunshot is. You could write it a bit like this. The composer has used the metaphor of silence being shattered to emphasize just how loud the gunshot is. So you notice as well in this pattern, we've got technique, example, effect. So that's TEE from steer. Metaphor is the technique, example, the quote, and then the effect. Nice, simple, short sentence, but it answers all of that part of the question, if there was a question. Is also to discuss the image that the simile is creating. For example, I was terrified, my heart was like a drum. Well, right there, it's a simile comparing a heartbeat to a drum beat. Powerful, loud, fast. It's reinforcing just how scared the character is because his heartbeat is thumping so loud. If you were going to write about this, you would say, the composer has used a simile in "my heart was like a drum." This reinforces the character's fear by showing that his heartbeat is loud, fast, and powerful. Notice also we've got technique, example, effect. Hyperbole. Well, we know hyperbole is exaggeration, and hyperbole is used to exaggerate our impression of a truth or a feature or an idea. So think about the image that you get in your mind and why the author wants you to have that particular image. For example, his nose was so big you could hide a rhino in his nostril. Fairly silly hyperbole, but it's telling us that the man has a humongous nose. In this case, it's kind of a funny hyperbole as well. So you could write about it like this. The composer has used hyperbole when he says, you could hide a rhino in his nostril. This creates a humorous image for the responder by exaggerating how big the character's nose is. So when you read a hyperbole, think about the picture that you get. Why does the author want you to have that particular picture? You notice again, technique, example, effect. Finally, personification. Well, personification connects readers with the object that's being personified. It can also help us understand or react emotionally to non-human characters, so dogs, things, whatever. It's there to create a particular human trait in whatever it is it's describing. Now, describing personification depends on what's being personified and how. So when you're writing about personification, think about the action or emotion that's being used to personify the object or non-human character. As an example, the wind growled at me. Well, it makes the wind seem scary and aggressive. The light in the darkness called out to me makes the light a symbol of hope and gives the impression that the light is kind of drawing the character to itself. So looking at, think about the attribute. Picture a person doing that thing. How would you feel about that person doing that thing? So somebody calling out to you, or in the wind's case, somebody growling at you. Well, that's a very strong picture. Think about the action and what that action is meant to make us feel. So in our example, the wind growled at me, you could write this. The composer has personified the wind by saying that the wind growled. This accentuates, means emphasizes, this accentuates the aggression of the wind, making it seem threatening and angry. Again, technique, example, and effect. There's no hard and fast rule when it comes to writing about the effective techniques because it really depends on what the technique is doing and the image that's being created. But use those 4 things to help you think about what the effect might be. So summarizing, metaphors and similes are normally used to create a more vivid impression of a particular thing, event, or idea. Hyperbole is used to exaggerate a truth, feature, or idea, and personification connects readers with the object that's being personified. Also, it helps us understand or react emotionally to non-human characters.